Dear friends, today I am going to talk about the recent US China diplomatic war on Taiwan. You may be aware of the fact that the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has successfully landed in Taiwan, completed her tour, and has left peacefully. What is significant about her visit to Taiwan is not just a symbolic message to China and to the world, but what I would say the hardcore victory of the American pragmatic diplomacy, global. American approach to diplomacy is unique and different from the rest of the world. I call it the American pragmatism. One can clearly see the triumph and the victory of the American pragmatism versus what I call the Chinese Confucianism. On the other hand, Chinese have been passive. Chinese have, although for weeks they have been talking about giving a befitting reply to the Americans if the House Speaker visits Taiwan, but in reality, they have been ineffective diplomatically, despite the fact that the State Councillor and the Foreign Minister of China, Wang Li, visited extensively the Pacific Ocean countries, the Far Eastern countries, and even some Asian and European countries. Overall, China has met with a disastrous and phenomenal, I would say, diplomatic failure at the hands of the pragmatic American global US American diplomacy. The interesting thing is that Pelosi talked about a continuous struggle between democracy, global democracy, and global autocracy. She talked about struggle, conflict between the values of democracy and autocracy, and asserted that America and the American people will continue to support the global democracy throughout the world and will support their friends who are democratic against the autocracy, Chinese autocracy, and the autocratic system, global autocracy. I mean, that is, I don't want to get into the subtleties and delicacies of the claim, but my question is that how far America can carry this so-called hollow, global war, and in which they are trying to lead and export democracy to the rest of the world. I think that is just a distraction by Pelosi from the main objective of her visit to Taiwan. She has successfully showed that American global domination in geopolitical power arena is beyond doubt. And if China wants one China, China has to enter into a real-time conflict. China cannot take back Taiwan through a Confucius prayer or through a Confucius approach to diplomacy, through trade and economy. Americans are clever and very hefty people. They will do all kind of trade and economic, exchanges with China. But at the same time, they had this strategic, you can say advantage over the Chinese, that they know how to aggressively push and pull their agenda internationally. And it is quite evident if we look at the Taiwan situation at the South China, right now, South China Sea and the Strait of Taiwan, we can clearly, these are the, you can say this is the body language of the Chinese and the Americans. You don't need any special intel or some secret document to come to this conclusion. It is evident, everybody can see it with their own eyes, that the Americans have put the Chinese on defensive, and China looks isolated in the region. Through the pragmatic diplomacy, through American pragmatic diplomacy, US has been able to rally Japan, Australia, South Korea, Far Eastern ASEAN country, India, the Arab states, Middle Eastern states, all this, the region, the entire Asian region, you can say, Far Eastern, South Asian, Middle Eastern region, and Europe, you can say. Almost, you can say, the Great Wall of diplomacy, you can say. The US has built a great wall of pragmatic global diplomacy against the Chinese, and have put them on the defensive side. Have put the American diplomacy on the back burner, Chinese diplomacy on the back burner. So China has to come out of its timidity from its passivity, if they want to have one China. Otherwise, I see that the tensions will continue in the South China Sea, and America will continue to hold its strategic significance and its strategic domination in the Strait of Taiwan and the South China Sea and the Pacific. America is not going to let that go out of her hand. Chinese have to have consider their Confucian approach to diplomacy. They have to show aggressiveness, and they have to come out of their isolation, and that is not possible through economics and peaceful economics and trade, through multilateralism or through bilateralism. There, China has to challenge the American strategic hegemony in the Pacific and the South China Sea. And China has to penetrate into the what I have termed as the Great Wall of American pragmatic diplomacy, global diplomacy, has to penetrate into the Asian, Far Eastern, Australian, Japanese, and all these regions, Middle Eastern regions, and have to develop alliances and friendships which can deliver to China. Yes, but the Chinese, like, in the case of Hong Kong, they can wait for another 100 years till, the strength and the power of the American global hegemony, decreases, or some, becomes weakened. But for that, you have to wait for another 100 years. Can China wait for that long? That needs to be seen. I don't think that China has been successful to counter in her counteroffensive vis-a-vis the House Speaker's visit, Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. On the other hand, America has gained beyond imagination, has gained a lot from the aggressive, dynamic, and what I call the pragmatic approach to diplomatic offensive on the Taiwan, and they have clearly delivered a hard message to the Chinese and to the Chinese leadership. Thank you very much.